The warehouse exploded around 4:40 p.m. We were just about to rotate out. A false alarm earlier in the day had cost us 2 hours in full gear. But this one was real. No alarms, no delay. Just the kind of heat that sucks the air out of your lungs and turns steel into paper. I was on the second floor checking for a missing worker, some kid who hadn't answered roll. He wasn't even in our zone, but dispatch had flagged the GPS tag on his badge near the upper level. I remember stepping past a forklift wedged against a collapsed door when the floor gave way. The sound didn't come first. It was pressure, a pulse. Something inside the building clenched and then let go. My knees folded before I knew what hit me. The railing gave out with a crack like bone, and I fell. 12 feet, maybe more. The landing should have done more damage. Later, they told me the only reason I wasn't paralyzed was because I landed between 2 collapsed pallet towers. The shelving took the worst of it. What got me was the heat. The skin across my ribs and arm was blistered through my jacket. My helmet cracked. The radios were dead. There was movement to my left. The kid, he was half conscious, coughing, legs pinned under a rolling cart. I got him loose before backup reached us. That's when the second blast hit. They say adrenaline masks pain. It doesn't. It delays it, like something hanging overhead, waiting. I felt every second of that crawl out. I remember dragging him with one arm, my glove melted at the fingers, the other arm hugging my side where the broken ribs made it hard to breathe. When they pulled me onto the stretcher, I was shaking. The sky looked dim, but it was still daylight. Smoke rose in spirals behind the ambulance. My left hand had no grip. The EMT handed me a saline mask. "You need to stay still." "My son," I said. "Call someone." He looked at me, then at the phone they'd pulled from my jacket pocket. "Who should I try?" "Mom." I blinked against the light. "Dad." Number 1 on the list. He pressed the button, held the speaker to my ear. It rang, then stopped. They hung up. "Try again," I said. "Group chat. Try the family group." He typed, then paused. A new message lit the screen. "Tonight is Maddie's bar admission dinner. That's more important than your latest drama." Drama. I couldn't speak. The EMT made a small noise in his throat. He didn't say anything else, just placed the phone beside me and adjusted the oxygen. In the ER, they cut the uniform off me. 3rd-degree burns on my left forearm and shoulder, fractured ribs, one pressing into my lung. I went under for surgery a few hours later. Before they sedated me, I asked for my phone. The nurse hesitated. "I need to find someone to watch my son." She passed it over. I stared at the screen. No missed calls, no messages. The group chat had gone quiet. I texted my neighbor, Mrs. Chan, the one who lives across the hall and always waves when she sees us at the mailbox. She once helped me carry groceries upstairs when my knee was acting up. I'd brought her soup when she had the flu. She answered in less than a minute. "Of course. Bring him over." I wired her $500. She sent back a sad face. "Amber, no, you don't have to." But I did. The next thing I did was open my banking app. There were 6 automatic payments still running monthly: my parents' mortgage, their home insurance, a car payment under my father's name, and 2 utilities. A 7th had recently been added, a medical premium for my mother's new plan. I'd set them up one at a time. Over years, quietly, I canceled all of them. It took 3 minutes. No one called to ask why. When I was 19, I took a job clearing debris after a hurricane 2 towns over. My hands bled through the gloves. My parents were behind on their mortgage and said nothing. My paychecks went straight to the bank. I never asked for thanks. When I got into the fire academy at 22, they didn't come to graduation. My sister had a dance showcase that night. My son was born in the back of a county hospital 7 weeks early. They sent flowers from a supermarket. The card said, "Congrats, hang in there." When my station nominated me for the Valor Award 3 years ago, I left 2 seats open at the ceremony. One for my mother, one for my father. They never RSVP'd. That night, Madison posted a picture of herself at a wine bar. Caption, Sisters make the best friends. There were 2 girls in the photo. Neither of them were me. I don't know when it started. Maybe before I was old enough to notice, maybe before I was born. Madison, Maddie, was always framed in gold, first in everything. Cheer captain, debate, early admissions. My mother called her our legacy. My father called her the one who'll carry us forward. My first job was as a lifeguard at 14. I bought my own school clothes. My sister's closet had tags still on. My father once told me, "You're strong, Amber. You don't need attention to do well." I believed him for a long time. I didn't believe him anymore. The night after surgery, I lay in a hospital bed with a rib brace, bandages wrapped from shoulder to wrist. My breathing was shallow. Every cough felt like a fracture. My son came in the next morning holding a juice box, Mrs. Chan beside him. He climbed up beside me carefully. "I brought your book," he said, "the one with the dog that gets out." I didn't cry. Mrs. Chan stayed for an hour, then left to run errands. She'd already arranged time off work to help. She didn't ask for anything. She'd known me for 18 months. My parents didn't text once. There are things you notice in silence, the way absence can feel louder than noise, the way people show you what you mean to them when you stop performing. Over 8 years, I'd transferred nearly $300,000 to my parents. Some months I covered their property tax. Some months I paid legal fees for Maddie's internships. When she went to London for a study abroad program, I footed the airline fees. No one said thank you. They never asked me how I managed it, how I raised a child, worked double shifts, trained new hires, and still found a way to send money every month without a single request for help in return. They just expected it. Expected I'd always be the reliable one, the fallback, the good daughter. Drama, they called it. A nurse came in that evening to change my dressing. She was about my age, quiet, efficient. Her badge said Danielle. When she peeled the gauze from my shoulder, she winced. "This must have hurt like hell." I nodded. She paused. "That kid you pulled out. He woke up asking about you, told everyone the only reason he made it was because someone wouldn't stop dragging him." I didn't say anything. She cleaned the wound, rewound the wrap, and before she left, she said, "People like you don't get enough credit." She was wrong. People like me don't get any. That night, I turned my phone to silent. I didn't check the group chat. I didn't respond to the passive-aggressive texts that started to come in a few days later. "Is something wrong with the mortgage payment?" "Your mother got a late notice from the insurance." "Hope you're not too busy to help the family." I left them on read. They never asked if I was alive. A month after I was discharged, Madison passed the bar. I wasn't invited to the celebration, not formally. I found out the way I usually did, through a group photo. My aunt posted it, all of them standing under gold foil balloons that spelled out, "Congrats, counselor." My father had a champagne glass raised. My mother wore a pearl brooch she only took out for special occasions. Madison stood in the center, grinning in a sleeveless white dress, holding up the certificate like a prizefighter. The caption read, "Proud doesn't even begin to cover it." In the comments, someone asked where I was. My cousin responded, "She's going through a rough patch." That's what they called it. Not recovery, not healing. A rough patch. Like I'd wandered off the map again, inconvenient and messy. Madison had spent 2 years in and out of academic probation, but they paid for a private tutor, extended her timeline, hired a resume coach. My mother wrote half her scholarship essays. When I failed my first physical trial at the fire academy, no one said a word. I trained through the winter, passed the second time with bruises across my knees and smoke in my lungs. No one came to that graduation either. The party was a week after I got the call from HR. They were formal about it. Too many missed shifts, still on light duty, liability concerns. I wasn't surprised. The station had been decent about it at first, good people mostly, but firefighting doesn't have room for limps or scars that crack in dry heat. They offered to help me transition into a desk role. I said I'd think about it. I didn't. I showed up to the party at 8:10 p.m., wearing a black blazer and the same boots I'd worn when I carried my son out of the maternity ward 5 years ago. The party was at a banquet hall Madison had reserved through a friend. Low ceilings, rental linens, twinkle lights duct taped to the bar. They'd tried to make it look like a country club. It smelled like buffet trays and floral perfume. No one noticed me walk in. There was music, pop hits with too much bass, and the clink of glasses, 100 conversations layered over one another. My mother was standing near the gift table arranging envelopes by size. My father leaned against the wall beside the buffet, laughing at something a younger man had said. I spotted Madison near the bar. I didn't move toward them. I walked the perimeter. Quiet, slow. I wasn't there to argue, just to be seen. Someone finally noticed me near the punch bowl. My cousin Rachel. She blinked, then gave a slow smile. Wow. I didn't know you were coming. I wasn't invited, I said. Oh, I'm sure that was just an oversight. It wasn't. I brought a card. I held it up. Plain white envelope, no bow, no glitter. She nodded like she approved. You look professional. I didn't answer. She drifted off. 10 minutes later, my father found me. Amber, he said, like he wasn't sure it was me. You should have told someone you were coming. I looked at him. He'd gained weight, wore a new watch. His tie was crooked. I wanted to congratulate Madison, I said. She'll appreciate that. There was a pause. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't ask about my son. Instead, he said, This isn't the best time to make things about you. I'm not. Good, he said. Just don't bring up any of the drama. Let tonight be about her. That word again. Drama. I nodded once. He turned away, already done. I stood near the wall and watched the night unfold. My mother gave a toast. My sister laughed too loud. Someone passed around sparklers they weren't supposed to use indoors. They'd booked a photographer. She didn't take a single picture of me. Later, when the music dipped low and people started drifting toward the dessert table, I stepped forward. Madison was talking to 2 of her law school friends. She saw me, smiled the way someone does when they've stepped around a puddle. Well, she said, look who came. Congratulations. She held out her hand like a diplomat. I shook it. Her skin was cold. I didn't expect you here, she added. Thought you were taking time off. I am. She tilted her head. Doing okay? I didn't answer. One of her friends leaned in. This your sister? Madison smiled wider. Yes, she's between things right now. The way she said it, like I was a loose paper she hadn't filed. The friend nodded politely. It's nice you came to support her. Madison cut in, voice bright. She's had a lot of free time lately. That's when I felt it. The shift in the room. It was small. A ripple. The sound of power slipping one notch to the left, because someone else had noticed. An elderly man standing just behind me. He wasn't part of the inner circle. Didn't have a drink in his hand or a plate. Just stood there, quiet, wearing a coat too warm for the room. He stepped forward, held out an envelope. I took it. He said nothing, just nodded, then left. Madison watched him go. Who was that? I didn't answer. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single folded page. The front bore a seal. Legal. Old. The heading read, Last Will and Testament of Eleanor Jean Brooks. It was dated 6 months prior. Everything was clear, typed in large print, notarized, 2 witness signatures. She'd left me her entire estate. The lake house, the savings account, the equity certificates in her safety deposit box. The letter attached was brief. For Amber, because I saw what no one else cared to. My hands didn't shake. I folded the page, slid it back into the envelope, and walked outside. The air was cold. I didn't tell anyone. Not that night. They were still taking pictures, still laughing, inside their circle. The lawyer called the next morning. He'd tried to reach my parents. No answer. Tried Madison. Her voicemail was full. Miss Brooks, he said when I picked up. I assume you've seen the documents. I have. I'll be reading the will to the family tomorrow. Eleanor requested it be done formally. She told you that? She was very specific. The meeting was held in her old sitting room. My father arrived first, then my mother, then Madison, wearing sunglasses she didn't need. I was already there. The lawyer laid out the documents. He began with the basics: dates, assets, transfer arrangements. My parents sat straighter when they heard the word property. The lawyer didn't look at them. He looked at me. "Miss Brooks," he said, "would you like me to continue?" I nodded. He read the details, one by one. The house, the accounts. The clause preventing any challenge based on undue influence. My mother's face collapsed first. My father's hand clenched on the armrest. Madison stared straight ahead. When the lawyer reached the final line, he paused. There is also a supplementary record. He pulled out a printed ledger. Every payment I'd made, 8 years, bank transfers, cash receipts, property tax statements. He laid them out, dates, amounts, confirmed. Eleanor was aware, he said. She retained copies through a third party. She witnessed the financial support provided by Amber Brooks to both her parents and sister. No one spoke. I watched them. Not for apology, just to see what silence would do. Later that night, the group chat went quiet. No new messages, no family jokes, just stillness. The kind that happens when a system has been interrupted. The silence lasted 3 days. Not the quiet kind. This was different. It was the kind that buzzed at the edges. I could feel it in my chest, like a low-voltage hum that didn't shut off. Group chats went blank. No calls, no replies, not even spammy forwarded links from my father. Then the messages started coming. Not directly to me. Through the usual back doors, my cousin Rachel texted a vague, "Hey, hope things aren't too weird right now." One of Madison's old roommates sent a thumbs-up emoji on a story I posted of my son in the backyard with a plastic fire truck. No words. Just that placeholder gesture people use when they want you to see they're watching, but not enough to take a side. I didn't respond. The lawyer handled the transfer paperwork without delay. Grandma's savings were more than I'd realized. She'd kept most of it in local bonds and a conservative portfolio that hadn't changed in decades. The house on the lake was fully paid off. The title moved to my name in under 2 weeks. Her note had mentioned a key in the back of her spice drawer. I found it taped to a glass jar labeled Bay Leaves. The day I stepped inside the lake house for the first time as its owner, it smelled like cedar and dust. The sun cut across the floorboards in clean lines. Her slippers were still by the hearth. I didn't touch them. In the upstairs bedroom closet, a banker's box sat labeled in her handwriting. It held receipts, newspaper clippings, an old fire department newsletter with my picture on the back page, from the year I got my first commendation. There was a sticky note on it. "She does more than they will ever know." I folded it once and placed it in my wallet. The neighbors around the lake were quiet folks. Retired teachers, a man who ran a canoe rental. 2 houses down, a woman named Edith left a small welcome basket on my steps with local honey and bath salts. Nobody asked questions. Nobody mentioned the will. They just let me arrive. I heard from my station captain a week later. He left a voicemail, said they'd reserved a spot for me on the safety education team if I wanted it. Flexible hours, part-time, good fit for someone with my background. I took the offer, not because I needed to prove anything, but because teaching kids how not to burn down their kitchen felt like the most peaceful use of what I knew. At home, my son adapted quickly. He liked the yard, the trees, the quiet. He'd point out the woodpeckers every morning like they were rare, and I never corrected him. We bought a second-hand bike. He wanted training wheels. I said yes. I stopped checking the clock every 5 minutes. I stopped holding my breath when my phone buzzed. It was my father who finally broke the silence. He showed up on a Tuesday afternoon in a car I didn't recognize. Not their usual sedan. Something rented, I guessed. He parked crooked at the end of the drive and stayed in the vehicle for almost a full minute before opening the door. I watched from the front porch. I didn't get up. He stepped out holding a manila envelope. No eye contact. Just a glance at the trees, the lake behind me. A deep breath. "Nice place," he said. I didn't answer. He walked up halfway, stopped at the first stair. Thought maybe we could talk. Still, I didn't move. He held out the envelope. I didn't reach for it. He set it on the stair. "Your mother's having a hard time," he said. "This whole thing, it's been complicated." That word, complicated. It meant we don't take responsibility, we just rearrange the blame. I said nothing. He shifted his weight. "You know Maddie didn't mean for it to go this way. She's been under a lot of pressure." I looked at him then. Not angry, not hurt. Just looked. He cleared his throat. "She lost her internship. Someone called the firm, told them about the will, about the financial stuff. It made her look—" He caught himself. "They didn't like the optics." I waited. He tried again. "You could have kept it in the family." "I did," I said quietly. That stopped him. I stood, walked down the steps, picked up the envelope, didn't open it. He watched me like he wanted to say more. Apologize, maybe, or rehearse some version of the truth that painted them all in softer light. But I'd learned something in the last few weeks. There's nothing quieter than a man who knows the power he held is gone. I opened the screen door behind me. "We're done," I said. He didn't argue. He got back in the car and drove off without looking back. Inside the envelope were a few forms, something about an insurance policy my name had once been added to years ago, a half-hearted attempt at justification, a letter written by my mother, printed, unsigned. It was mostly questions. "Why would you do this? Why now? Don't you love us?" I folded it once and slid it into a drawer. The money I used to send every month now goes into a college fund. I opened it in my son's name, set it to auto-transfer. No one else can touch it. The paperwork is sealed. The passcode is a date nobody else remembers but me. The day I stopped asking to be believed. Rachel texted me a few weeks later, said the family was still adjusting. They'd removed me from the main group chat. She thought I should know, said it wasn't personal. I thanked her. She didn't reply after that. A neighbor invited me to a community potluck. I brought pasta salad. No one made speeches. No one asked what I did before I moved here. A kid spilled juice on my shoe and his mother apologized like it was a real crisis. It felt like a beginning, not a restart, just something quiet that didn't need proving. I kept my old turnout gear. It hangs in the back of the coat closet, smoke-stained and stiff at the seams. I don't look at it often, but I didn't throw it away. You don't discard the things that shaped you. You just stop letting them define you. My son knows his grandmother's name. We say it when the wind lifts across the lake and makes the trees whisper. I told him once that she built things no one else saw, that she left space for the quiet ones. He asked if she ever visited us now. I said, "Every time you laugh." He nodded, satisfied. The lake doesn't ask who you used to be. It just reflects what's in front of it. Sometimes, when the water is still, I sit on the porch steps and let the silence settle. Not the kind I used to survive, but the kind I chose, the kind that makes room for breath, for peace, for life that belongs only to me. There's a sound the lake makes at night, just before full dark. Not wind, not water, not wildlife. It's a stillness that arrives between movements, when the day has let go but the night hasn't quite taken hold. I sit with it sometimes, on the back steps, listening with my hands wrapped around a mug that's gone cold. My son asleep. The porch light off. The world smaller. I don't know what it is, but it feels honest. They tried one more time. Not with flowers, not with forgiveness, with paperwork. A letter from a firm downtown. Names I recognized. Ones I'd seen printed on gala invitations and tax forms in my parents' office drawer when I used to stop by between shifts. It was polite. 3 pages, double-spaced, no signatures. It referred to inheritance confusion. It requested review of disputed documentation. It suggested that joint understanding could avoid unnecessary escalation. There was no legal claim, just pressure dressed in formatting. I read it twice. Then again. The tone was familiar, polished, impersonal, designed to unsettle without directly accusing. I didn't call them. I called Eleanor's attorney. He was slow-spoken and calm, asked me for a scanned copy, asked if I'd been contacted directly, asked if I had spoken to my parents since. "No," I said. "Good," he replied. "Let them send letters. We'll handle the rest." I never saw a second notice. At the school where I teach fire safety, we use a plastic model house to demonstrate evacuation plans. It's nothing special, just a fold-out board with removable furniture and little red arrows that show where smoke would travel. The kids love it. One day, a student asked, "Why do we close the doors if there's fire?" "To slow it down," I said, "to keep it from spreading." "What if it gets through?" "Then we go out the window." He nodded, satisfied. Later that night, I wrote a note to myself and taped it above my desk. You don't stop a fire by arguing with it. You close the door and find another way out. My sister hasn't spoken to me since the reading. I've seen her name in local legal blogs. Her picture still floats through the feed every few weeks. Headshots, quotes about resilience, captions that mention nothing of context. I don't read them, but one post found its way to me through an old friend. It was a short essay she'd written titled, "Carrying the Weight, A Young Lawyer's Journey to Balance." The piece mentioned growing up in a family of strong personalities. It hinted at challenges with inherited expectations. It framed her success as hard-earned. My name wasn't in it, but the tone was unmistakable. I closed the tab. That was the last time I searched her name. There's a drawer in the hallway chest where I keep certain things now, a copy of the will, the first message from the group chat, printed on plain paper, the check stubs I used to write for the property taxes, a photo of me in turnout gear, holding a newborn at Station 14's open house. My hair was still tucked under the hood. My expression was tired, focused. I keep it all there. Not for memory, but for record. People forget what they choose to. Paper doesn't. My mother sent a birthday card this year. No return address, no signature, just a generic printout from one of those mail order companies that lets you pick a sentiment and type a name at the bottom. It arrived 2 weeks late. The name line was blank. I placed it back in the envelope and returned it to the post office with "Refused, not at this address" written across the front. The clerk didn't ask. She just nodded and placed it in the bin behind her. A few days after, I opened my calendar and marked that date. Not for mourning, just to remind myself that some boundaries require reinforcement, not because the other person will cross them, but because they'll pretend not to see them unless they're painted twice. There are wild turkeys that pass through the backyard most mornings. They travel in quiet packs like old soldiers on patrol. My son calls them the quiet parade. He counts them like sheep before school. Sometimes I sit beside him on the porch while he watches. "Will they come back tomorrow?" he asked once. "They might." "What if they don't?" I shrugged. "Then we had today." He thought about that, then nodded, like it made sense. We painted the guest room last weekend. The old wallpaper came off in strips. Underneath, the wall was clean, smooth, untouched since the house was built. I ran my fingers over the bare surface before priming it. My son picked the color, blue-gray, almost silver in certain light. He said it looked like morning. We didn't rush the job. We let it dry between coats, let the air move through. No one else had ever lived in that room. No one else needed to. The final payment on my parents' car loan cleared 2 months before I cut them off. I didn't remind them, didn't ask for reimbursement, didn't mention that their medical premiums had been covered during the last insurance gap, after my mother was denied a secondary plan and before Madison's employer offered family coverage. I didn't keep receipts to prove a point. but I kept enough to protect myself. There's a term I teach now during fire drills: defensible space. It refers to the area around a structure cleared of anything flammable, dry brush, dead leaves, unstable materials, not because fire always comes, but because if it does, you've given it less to feed on. I've cleared my space, not with anger, not with declarations, with decisions, the kind you don't reverse just because the flames pretend they were never there. Last week, a kid in class raised his hand and asked, "Were you ever scared?" I knew what he meant. He didn't mean smoke or heat or buildings collapsing. He meant people, family, being alone. "Yes," I said, but I didn't stay scared. There's a bench at the edge of the lake, not marked, not official, just 2 worn planks resting across cinder blocks, placed years ago by someone who didn't want a porch, just a view. I go there sometimes. I don't bring my phone. I don't bring memories. I sit and let the water reflect whatever's in front of it. Not what I lost, not what I endured, just what I kept. And what I kept was this: my name, my house, my child, my time. My right to leave rooms where I was only ever expected to serve. My choice to never walk back in. You've read this far. Maybe you've seen parts of your own story in mine. If so, I'm not here to tell you what to do next. Only this: close the door, open the window, clear the space, let the fire die without your permission. And if you ever want to share your story, or just your silence, I'll be here. No pressure, no drama, just room